Yeah, so for this one, I don't know what YouTube's go. They give. Remember they put those. Matter of fact, they don't have that thing, that fact checker. They don't even have the fact checker on this video because it's a judge. I, but what we're gonna bring up. You will just say the shenanigans in 2020, and this is a town, a city in Connecticut, Democrat stronghold, and they overturned a judge finally, and this you can call election fraud for this particular election, this one election in a Democrat stronghold. Sad, but I'll just say, it was ballot stuffing, all of that, mail-in
But the
ballots.
two major candidates were the following. You had the incumbent, Mayor Joe Ganim, who was endorsed by the local Democrat Party, and then you had the main challenger, Mr. John Gomes. And this particular election, just like many elections across the whole country now, it included thousands of absentee ballots. Specifically, according to the official tally, which came in after the polls closed, the incumbent mayor, Joe Ganim, he received 4,212 votes, of which 1,564 were by absentee ballot. Meanwhile, the challenger, Mr. John Gomes, he received 3,961 votes, of which only 861 were absentee, meaning that in practical terms, if you look only at the people who voted in person on election day, you would find that they decidedly voted for the challenger, Mr. John Gomes. But, strangely, out of the people who voted by absentee ballots, somehow the ratio was completely flipped. Out of the absentee ballot group, the incumbent mayor got nearly twice as many votes as the challenger, which put him ahead just enough to clinch the victory by a tiny margin of just about 251 votes. However, smelling that something was perhaps fishy with these absentee ballots, Mr. John Gomes, he went ahead and he filed a lawsuit against several officials at both the city and the state level, citing improprieties with the election. And as a part of the lawsuit, Mr. Gomes presented video surveillance footage which allegedly shows unauthorized city employees depositing huge amounts of absentee ballots into the ballot drop boxes. Now, the first set of video footage appears to show this woman right here, Ms. Anita Martinez. She is a city councilwoman who happens to be a big supporter of the incumbent mayor.
Democrat, females, whatever she is, black, Martinez, half black, Latino, it's up north, Connecticut, yeah, Puerto Rican, black, whatever. And just watch.
To the point where they campaigned together, they knocked on doors together, and prior to the election, she posted this on
And the Democrat is a white dude. See why I call them house niggas and slaves?
Twitter right here. Quote,
Not dehumanizing anybody. That's literally, a nerd wouldn't understand that. But real niggas, us field niggas, we understand that.
we got your back, Mayor Joseph P. Ganim. Vote top line all the way. And perhaps it's also worth mentioning that Ms. Martinez was also... They knocked on doors together, and prior to the election, she posted this on Twitter right here. Quote, we got your back, Mayor Joseph P. Ganim. Vote top line all the way. And perhaps it's also worth mentioning that Ms. Martinez was also on the ballot during this particular election cycle. And so with that as the general background, well, take a look at the surveillance footage that was presented as evidence in court. The first video here shows footage outside a drop box on August 27th at about 5 p.m. For reference, this ballot drop box is located at 950 Boston Avenue, right outside of a fire station. And this video, it shows Ms. Anita Martinez coming out of her black BMW and depositing what appears to be at least a dozen ballots, one after the other, into the ballot drop box before getting back into her car and driving away. We then fast forward 2 days to August 29th, and we pretty much get a repeat performance. Ms. Anita Martinez returns, deposits what appears to be at least 10 ballots, and once again drives away.
10 ballots.
Again to September the 4th.
Everybody get one vote. She got tens and 20s of votes, but they laugh at and joke at Democrats, niggas. See what I'm saying? House niggas. That's why I said we call them house niggas. They find see that's like what I'll just say so I won't get a strike. Even with this type of evidence, if they revisit the 2020, I'll just say shenanigans, whatever. They say, remember they were saying the next day or weeks later, the judges threw it out. That's it. You just mad. You're just mad. And see, they no, those are corrupt judges. The same people they call police and judges corrupt when they let a cop go, and the video shows he was justified in shooting the nigga, but they don't care. You know, the judge is corrupt, but any other time, long as it's their way, they're not fair and impartial. They just want things their way.
And Miss Anita Martinez appears to return again, this time at night, and proceeds to deposit more and more ballots. Now, here it's hard to tell how many she deposited just because it's so dark, but we can safely say that it's more than one. Then, 2 days later, on September the 6th, even later at night, you have the same black BMW return again. And what appears to be Miss Martinez, she gets out of the car and once again deposits even more ballots. And so that was Miss Martinez. The next set of footage shows a different drop box as well as a different city employee. This woman right here, Miss Wanda Getter, she is a city official in the city of Bridgeport. She is the vice chairwoman of the Bridgeport Democrat Party Town Committee, and also, in regards to the mayoral election, she was a supporter of the incumbent mayor. And this is the video footage that was again played during the trial, showing what appears to be Miss Wanda Getter either placing multiple ballots into the ballot drop box herself, or coming up to the box with other people as they drop ballots into the box and she just watches. And this appears to be happening across multiple different days leading up to the actual election. Furthermore, this particular ballot drop box was located right outside of the City Hall building where Ms. Getter works, and so there's other footage showing Ms. Getter interacting with people inside the building before going out to either deposit the ballots herself or sometimes have someone else deposit the ballots. And just by watching the footage, you can tell that the number of votes that this represents is not small, especially given the fact that the margin of victory was just 251 votes. Now, I will quickly pause here for a moment to mention that both Ms. Martinez as well as Ms. Getter, they have both not been found guilty of anything as of yet. And of course, here in America, everyone, no matter who they are, is innocent until proven guilty. All I'm doing is I'm showing you the specific surveillance footage that was shown in the courtroom by Mr. Gomez and his legal team. This was exactly what was in front of the judge, and you can decide for yourself what it all means. However, just for your general reference, over in Connecticut, quote, state law enables absentee voting but contains multiple rules, including that a person who helps distribute more than 5 absentee applications must register with the town clerk as a distributor. However, both Wanda Getter and Anita Martinez did not register as absentee ballot distributors or sign any applications, which was required if they assisted voters, nor were they designated by absentee voters to drop off absentee ballots. Meaning that technically they could have registered as ballot distributors, but
They
didn't.
didn't do it.
Also, it's worth mentioning that besides these two women, the video surveillance footage also shows several other city council members, as well as masked individuals whose identities we can't tell.
Those should be just disqualified a whole election, especially with masked individuals and who pushed for the mask starting in 2020, the beginning January 2020, the mask fiascos. It is you just can't trust these people. Matter of fact, I say, okay, because they're gonna, the Democrats are gonna try to milk it. But what about the wheelchair bound? They're still allowed, or bed, whatever. They're still allowed to vote. They need absentee. Okay, so you know what? The ballot drip boxes and mail in, you only get one. Ballot boxes, I say the Democrat cities, they spending all this money, these videos of Democrat mayors, black mayors, new mayors, seriously. They're spending all money on all types of shit. They'll spend money to pay security company. Security guard, I've been a security guard. All they gotta do is sit in this truck all 3 shifts. Just like remember the Democrats were spending money on security guards. Cori Bush, remember her? She spent all that money on security guards, talking about Trump's whatever her reason. She was people were after her, and so you could spend that. You could just hire a security company, each box. That it's a lot, or I don't know. It'd be a lot and a lot of money, but or just put the cameras on them, and somebody just got to monitor the cameras instead of just rolling back the footage afterwards. Just make sure it's well lit. Each box is well lit up, and the cameras are monitored, or go back and monitor it every day to make sure nobody's stuffing ballots. So these corrupt Democrats can't steal shit.
Placing large amounts of ballots one after the other into the ballot drop boxes. In total, After they completed their analysis of about 2,000 hours of this footage, Mr. Gomes's campaign team, they determined that there were about 900 more absentee ballots received compared to the number of people who were seen at the drop boxes across the whole city. Here was, in fact, what the campaign manager for John Gomes said while speaking outside of the courtroom.
Subtract people coming up to the ballot box and doing individual, then you subtract that number. So then as you continue to subtract, you get around 900 that, how did they get to town clerk?
And if you think about it, 900 ballots in an election where the margin of victory was only 251 votes, well, that is obviously significant. Now, for their part, during the actual trial, the two women in the video footage, they decided to plead the fifth in order to not incriminate themselves. Meanwhile, the incumbent mayor, he testified that he was shocked by the footage and that he had no knowledge and no involvement in the alleged scheme. Although it is interesting to note that...
Of course he was shocked and had no knowledge. I don't know. They did that for themselves. I ain't tell them to do that.
This was not the first
Throw
time that
them
such
under
a
the
thing
bus.
was alleged. In fact, back in 2019, there was a similar scheme to which the State Election Commission recommended that 3 people aligned with the mayor's campaign be charged for violations that were tied to, you guessed it, absentee ballots. That was, again, 4 years ago, back in 2019. And when he was asked about it on the stand, this time, here's what the mayor said.
The incumbent mayor, grilled by his opponent's attorneys, being questioned about a similar case in 2019. Then mayoral candidate Marilyn Moore filed a lawsuit against Scannum to get the results of the primary overturned after allegations of election fraud. That lawsuit was unsuccessful.
In the 2019 case, you actually filed a defense in that case, and you filed it through a lawyer, right? You know, honestly, I don't.
However, this story gets a lot wilder, which we'll get into right after I introduce today's sponsor by showing you this little piece of money. Or rather, I should say that this is such that it calls the result of the primary election in serious doubt and leaves the court unable to determine the legitimate result of the primary. The court orders a new primary for the Democrat Party nomination for mayor of the city of Bridgeport shall be held. Now, as you would imagine, Mr. Gomes was quite pleased with this particular ruling. Here was what he said as a part of a statement following the judge's decision. Quote, "Today, Lady Justice fulfilled her duty. She attentively heard the voices of the people of Bridgeport, carefully considered the facts, and impartially applied the law, as justice should always be served. The victory today belongs not only to me as the plaintiff, but to all the people of Bridgeport who were wronged in the numerous ways detailed in Judge Clark's remarkable decision. Today, democracy prevails." On the flip side, however, you had the incumbent mayor release his own statement saying that the judge's decision was substantial and that he would, quote, "wait to be apprised by the lawyers as to whether or not they want to take an appeal." But in terms of the next steps in this whole drama, this is where things get a little bit weird. Because on the one hand, the judge ordered that the results of the primary election have to be thrown out and a new primary election has to be held. However, the general election happens to be tomorrow, on November the 7th, and the judge does not have the authority to change or to postpone the date of the general election. Meaning, in practical terms, that the judge, quote, ordered election officials to hold a new primary, but had no authority to postpone the general election in the meantime. And so, on Tuesday, the general election will go on as planned. Now, Bridgeport happens to be a Democrat stronghold. And so typically the way it works is that whoever wins the Democrat primary is almost certain to be the next mayor. However, take a look at the ballot that the people will have in front of them tomorrow. As you can see, for mayor, you have the following options. You have the incumbent, Mayor Joseph Gammon, as the Democrat Party candidate. You have David Hers as the Republican candidate. And then, at the bottom, the Secretary of State allowed John Gomes to enter the race as an independent candidate. And so, what will happen is, frankly, anyone's guess. Maybe the Democrat vote will be split between Gomes and Gammon, and the Republican will wind up winning, which would be a major upset. Or maybe people will be just so infuriated by all the election fraud and vote for John Gomes. Or maybe the incumbent mayor will win after all. But then the question becomes, regardless of the outcome, when will the primary election be redone? And once it's redone, will the general election have to be redone as well? In short, what's currently happening over in the city of Bridgeport was, I believe, summed up quite well by a state representative when he said this, quote, "Obviously, we're in very uncharted legal waters here." That, indeed, they are. All we know for certain is that the judge in the Connecticut Superior Court found enough concrete evidence of ballot fraud to overturn the primary election. In terms of what happens next, well, we'll just have to wait and see. If you'd like to go deeper into this...
We'll just wait and see. But I think that's a big sign that things are really changing all over.